Legends. Welcome back to another video. In this video, guys, we're going to be going over the behavior of USD CAD on the weekly time frame. I'm super excited to be getting into this video. Reason being is I've done a lot of posts before on the behavior of USD CAD and all the interesting things that come about within the behavior. However, I've never done an actual video breaking down my exact reasons for the behavior and the potential movements that could come about and things of this nature. So super excited to be getting into this video. If you guys have any questions pertaining to the material that I go through or anything in general, please don't hesitate to send me a message. I am more than happy to help you guys out. And so with this, guys, if you guys enjoy this video, please don't hesitate to give it a thumbs up, as well as please leave a comment in the comment section down below letting me know other videos that you guys would like to see. And so with that, guys, let's get right into it. USD CAD on the weekly time frame from a behavioral analysis perspective. To start off, we can see that in the last 2.5 years, USD CAD has been in a pretty nice cyclical behavior. We can see an initial bearish impulse made by the sellers, in which we do receive a nice long state of liquidation or profit taking. And then from there, we receive a further continuation of that initial impulse, and then we do move into a nice long state of liquidation or profit taking. Okay, so now we have a good understanding of what has been happening within the last 2.5 years. Now let's really take a look at why this descending momentum came about, and more importantly, what other potential movements could come about in the coming years. Remember, Legends, I'm speaking much longer time frame. I'm just showing you guys the really interesting things that are coming about on the weekly time frame. So let's begin. We can see an initial impulse made by the buyers, in which this descending momentum is treated as liquidation or profit taking. So now we understand why price moved into this cyclical behavior, because we were in a state of liquidation or profit taking from the initial bull run made. Okay, now we're understanding a bit more. Now the question becomes, A, when is this going to kick in? And B, are we going to get another impulse such as the prior? Okay, to do this, Legends, we got to understand the mechanics of the behavior that is currently happening, and they'll start to give us some more clues. So let's get into the current behavior of what's been going on within the last 2.5 years. Once again, we make an initial bearish impulse. Okay, now we're going to start getting more detailed regarding the behavior, and I want you, Legends, to take a look at this box that I created at the top left. You guys can see the behavior that's been going on with USD CAD on the weekly time frame. So we make an initial bearish impulse made by the sellers. Check. Then we move into a long state of liquidation or relief. Check. Then notice what happens here, Legends. We make a false break of the highs. Check. Then my students notice, the Legends that are a part of the course, shout out to you guys. We create a structural retest. Price comes back and tests where it initially started its bearish momentum. Check. Then last but not least, we receive a continuation of that initial bearish impulse. Check. Very interesting. Now we have a good understanding of the behavior of the initial bearish momentum. Now let's take a look at what's been going on since then. Let's see if we have the same cyclical behavior. So we make an initial bearish impulse right here. Check. Then we make a pullback or a state of liquidation. Check. Then check this out, Legends. We make a false break of the highs. Check. Then, Legends, I'm just going to erase this so you guys can see this easier. We create a structural retest. We test where we initially started our bearish momentum. Check. And now the question becomes, do we get another one of these? And on top of that, when will this start to kick in, no longer warranting this as liquidation or relief? So to first state that we will get another continuation of this, obviously, if you guys have been trading for a while, you guys understand price action. We need short-term lower lows to come about, retest, of course, and then we can start pushing to the lows. So we do need structure to give us a bit more confirmation whether we will get that bearish momentum or not. But this is the interesting thing, Legends. So now we have a really good understanding of what's been going on from a behavioral perspective on the weekly time frame. They've been forming the exact cyclical movements. Okay. Now like I said before, if we break, create short-term lower lows, we should start to rally to the downside. But the question is, will we break the lows, or will this start to kick in at some point? Let's take a look at that. And this is where things get super, super interesting. Right before we get into that, I just want to touch on one thing here. If you guys know basic market structure, basic patterns, this is a basic 1, 2, 3 pattern. 1 is our impulse, 2 is our liquidation. So in theory, if we broke and created short-term lower lows, this would be 3, and 3 always targets back to 1. So if we do in fact create short-term lower lows, then statistically we should push back down to the lows. Now, once again, the question becomes, should we get a big enough impulse? Will this start to kick in? Things of that nature. Now, this is where it gets super interesting. It was interesting at first that they had the exact same cyclical behavior. Now this gets even cooler. So take a look at this. If we take a look at the initial bearish impulse, it made a push of 2,229 pips. Now, the state of liquidation or relief it went into, it pulled back about 1,332 pips. Okay. Now we have a good understanding of the average pushes from the buyers and sellers. We can now gauge strength. Good to go. Notice what happens here. We receive another push, but this time we only pushed 1,731 pips, a decrease by 498 pips between the sellers, the first initial bearish impulse, and the second, okay? Now notice this. We pull back, and we pull back 1,324 pips. No real significant change, and it makes sense. Reason being is this is all liquidation or profit taking from this initial impulse. Okay, so the question becomes, if we do end up breaking out of this last higher low and we start to tag the lows, should we make a bigger push or not, or will we start to slow down and maybe price will start to kick in its bullish momentum? Well, let's take a look. Since there was no decrease or change within the first and second pullbacks, we're going to disregard these for now, because remember, we're still expecting this to kick in at some point. We understand this momentum is liquidation. So take a look at this. If we take a look at the difference between the first bearish impulse and the second bearish impulse, it gives us a total of 498 pips. Now, we were stating here, if we do create short-term lower lows and things of that nature, we could come tag the lows. If that's the case, this is our driver. That's our momentum, correct? So therefore, we would take our driver or momentum, which made a push of 1,731 pips. And if we take the decrease between the first impulse and the second impulse, which is 498 pips, that will get you guys a total of 1,233 pips. And if you legends measure the impulse from the tops to the bottoms, it is exactly 1,233 pips. And price is expected to make a shorter term impulse because, remember, legends, this is all profit taking or liquidation from this driver. How insane is that? First, we have the exact same cyclical behavior. And secondly, if structure does in fact create short-term lower lows, statistically, we should push down to the lows, basic 1, 2, 3 pattern, and the exact movement is 1,233 pips, which is the difference between the first impulse and the second impulse. Sorry, the difference between the decrease of the first and second impulse, subtracting it from your current driver. That, my friends, is ridiculous. It's absurd. The fact that price can be this exact, this cyclical, is amazing. Take a look once again at what we just did. We just understood the entire behavior of the last 2.5 years, and B, more importantly, understood that if this does in fact create short-term lower lows, it starts to push, the exact amount of pips can be calculated just by seeing the decrease of the first and second impulses, and then from there taking your current driver and minusing that decrease. That is how insane the game is. And so with that, legends, that is the breakdown and behavior of USD CAD on the weekly time frame. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Once again, guys, if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up. Let me know if you guys found this interesting, okay? Crazy stuff. Excited to get into the next video, guys. I'll speak to you legends all later.